Welcome to 10 Minutes with Titanium Ventures. I'm Marcus Bartram, General Partner at Titanium, and today I have two very special guests, Saket Modi, founder of Safe Security and Titanium Ventures portfolio company, and Brandon Pinzon, a Global Chief Information Security Officer. Welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me. So Brandon, wonderful to have you here today. Can you kind of talk a little bit about your history in the cyber industry and what you're doing today?
My history in cyber actually almost happened by accident. I feel like it chose me. I actually started the world as a network engineer and then ultimately running all voice and data for a bank. Through regulations and otherwise, I was given the chance to go through and actually just focus on the security and the defense, even before it was called cybersecurity. It was most recently really got interested in appraising risk. And so no better place to do that than in the insurance industry, especially as it relates to cyber insurance. So I've had a wonderful career really helping to measure risk, helping to defend customer environments, helping to defend the bank, and ultimately, serving as an advisor.
And Saket, wonderful to have you here today. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your, the origin story of Safe Security and why you landed on this problem around Cyber Risk Quantification and how you got there.
I started from my dorm rooms. We basically were a services company. We were doing vulnerability assessment, penetration testing for some of the biggest companies in the world. And while we were doing that, we figured that we could hack into some really, really large companies pretty easily with their permissions, of course. The reaction from people, especially CISO +1, +2, +3, was either they're very, very scared, or some of them are like, yeah, I've seen this in other boards and other places. None of this happens in real life. You guys had special access. In our view, both of those responses were not very scientific. So the right way in which you go ahead and look at risk of any kind is actually have a very data-backed approach to say what is the real risk. And the real risk to a business only has one metric, and that's dollars. So therefore, going ahead and trying to translate the technical jargon that 99.9% of the cybersecurity industry today it lives in, but then translating it to what non-technical executives, which is again 99% of the executives of the world, can understand and take actions based on that.
You touched on a couple of things that I think were interesting in the context of what you said, Brandon, where Saket has a platform that's trying to identify and correlate all this signal to identify risk. In an insurance context, you're actually then trying to underpin that with money and policy. How does that sort of work in a sort of practical sense for a policy holder?
In the most practical sense is you really need to know your numbers to know your business. And so when you're running a security program, you need to understand what your revenue looks like. You also need to understand what your budget looks like. And then ultimately, in some way, someone's buying a cyber insurance policy. And so what you're looking to do and what the overall solution is doing is really setting a very deliberate tolerance between what it is you're able to go and ultimately manage yourself within the four walls of your environment using your sources of truth. And so it's going through and saying, how do you prove it? How do you tap into those sources of truth? We know that when we get more mature, we get things into a continuous assessment mode. And we want to use that same information to understand the full walls of our environment.
Do you think that conversation is translating out of the office of the CISO to the broader executive in a company and up to the board?
Before understanding whether cybersecurity is now becoming a concern beyond the CISO, let's first understand technology is now a concern beyond the CTO and CIO. Because today technology is the business. Because if technology gets disrupted in most Fortune 500 companies, the business gets disrupted. Today, technology enables business and customer acquisition and customer experience. And therefore, any glitch in that is a direct function of what impacts your P&L. So therefore, any issues with technology is a CEO problem. It's a board problem. At SAFE, we are enabling decision-making for CISOs, which is data-backed, which will actually enable them to take plans, options in ways which the business, whether it's a CFO, whether it's business unit leaders, whether it's CEO, whether it's board, they can understand cybersecurity, not in technical jargons, but in ways which business understands and operates in. And based on that, drive decision making and take a calculated call. You never are at zero risk. It's all about risk management.
I think what's the opportunity for us as CISOs to be seen as the actual executive, not a lesser executive, is to talk about that. Are we willing to accept a 1% chance that we're going to experience a $20 million cyber incident? Think about that. That's a different conversation. And so if you don't have that conversation, then what are you saying? You basically have zero tolerance for any form of an incident? So that's exactly where we're able to focus with data and facts and eliminate some of the intangible. In other words, you have to go around and ask the question. It's just automatically doing that. Other industries, other executives, folks that have those conversations in dollars and cents are doing that. We as CISOs are just catching up.
In that context, Saket, kind of what do you see as the next biggest opportunities for SAFE, and what are you looking forward to for the next 12, 24 months?
There needs to be a platform which enables decision making for chief security officers. I'll give you the irony right now. Think about the 3 largest cybersecurity companies in the world: Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike, and Zscaler. I'm ready to bet $1,000 on this. Ask any Fortune 500 CISO, how many times do they log into any of these platforms in a week? And the answer will be, I don't. Take a parallel. Chief revenue officers are every day in salesforce.com for decision making. Chief finance officers are every day in an Oracle NetSuite or an SAP. Where is that product for CISOs? And that is what we are building. Our DAO-MAO ratio for CISOs is higher than any cybersecurity product out there, because CISOs live and breathe decision making based on, hey, my peer just got hacked. Am I really secured? My company wants to do AI. Am I really secured? These are the questions that matter to a CISO, not how many systems have vulnerabilities or how many people clicked on a phishing link. They are important data points, but they are pieces of the puzzle. Who puts that puzzle together? And that is exactly what we are driving SAFE with. It's a tool grounds up, architecturally built for CISO's decision making on a day-to-day basis.
One of the biggest market evolutions we've seen is the explosion in the adoption of AI-based LLM technology. So maybe to Brandon, how has that impacted the companies that you work with and advise? And what does it actually mean to them?
So the way I think about it in its most simple way, it is an untrained model intersects with data to then form a trained model. And so that's really the essence of any technology intersecting with data to produce some sort of an outcome. And so those that are maybe experimenting with it, we're finding that, hey, when it goes into actual production, it becomes a challenge for it to be a true solution because the intent wasn't set. But when it comes into the what if scenarios, and you think about a really particular what if scenario, like inviting a technology into your environment, your data protection program is going to change. Your third-party risk management is going to change. The nuance to data management and the nuance to your asset management is going to change. And so how do you know what's going to affect, when you actually go to deploy that, unless you do what if scenarios? And so in many cases, we're seeing the industry kind of maybe plateau a little bit. There's been a lot of interest because we're not thinking about it from a what is the loss scenario.
That's a great segue. Because I want to ask Saket, what are you seeing in the market with this technology, but what does it mean to SAFE as a company?
AI for security and security for AI are both absolutely top priorities for us as a company. Because it's just changing the conversations and the way CISOs have been able to interact with this gigantic amount of data that they have through so many tools, with so much threat intelligence, and with totally no ideas of the business context. We are putting all of that together and making it simple. So that is, of course, using AI for security. But what about security for AI? So we've built a host of risk scenarios while companies transition in with AI and transition their business models. It's very important to know that what is the risk that you're going to get. And if you understand that, it doesn't have to be accuracy versus precision. It doesn't have to be precise to the second place of decimal. But you need to understand what's the kind of risk that we're looking at. It just helps accelerate. Going back to the very famous analogy, if you see the movie Ford versus Ferrari, it basically says that why do you have brakes in a car? It's not to slow the car down, but so that you can move faster with higher confidence. And that's exactly the moment you understand your risk. It doesn't slow you down, but now you can go even faster on AI or digital transformation because you know that you got this under control.
Thanks very much to Saket and Brandon. Wonderful guest to have on the show today. This has been Marcus for 10 Minutes with Titanium.